Sequels are hard. Welcome back. I'm John Stark from MacMovieGuy.com, your favorite blind film critic. And today, I'm grabbing my... What does he have, a hook? I'm grabbing my hook and I'm diving into the ocean to review Moana 2. It's Maui's thing. Is it a hook? Seriously, I forgot. This is the sequel to Moana. You may have pieced that together on your own. I just also today am putting up a second look at Moana, a film that I've seen a couple times. First time with audio description for that, and I watched Moana 2, and I saw this with audio description. I was really looking forward to Moana 2 because I A, like the first movie. B, I'm easy to please when it comes to Disney animation. As long as you don't Cars 2 the whole thing, we're good. But sequels are hard, man. And this is a true thing that plagues Disney, is that they can't quite figure out how to make a good sequel, and they can't capture quite the magic of something like a Toy Story 2, which arguably is better than the original because it took everything and it knew like sort of what made one great, and it benefited from all of the storytelling, and then they flipped it and put it into two and made two even more emotionally impactful than one. And it also has a killer song that's memorable. So while you have You Got a Friend in Me, which is definitely a Disney classic, When She Loved Me is also a Disney classic in and of its own right. So Moana 2's got Beyond. It's also got returning voice cast from Ali Carvalho and Dwayne Johnson. So that's something working for it. And the people who wrote the score for Moana returned. But the people who wrote the songs, aka Mr. Lin-Manuel Miranda, did not return. And it's these two young women who are the youngest people to ever write for Disney. And they're getting a ton of shit online for not being Lin-Manuel Miranda, which is kind of unfair because, I mean, a lot of sequels just don't have the same people returning. I mean, there have been multiple sequels to The Lion King. I don't think Tim Rice and Elton John wrote all of the music for all of them, so it's just... It just is what it is, man. I don't know what to tell you. Lin got pulled into Mufasa, and they're already using him. Like, basically their entire existence rests on Lin-Manuel Miranda at this point over at Disney, which is kind of unfortunate because I would say look at the other musicals that have been on Broadway and find other great composers, and then offer them movies. Like, he seems like an odd choice for Mufasa anyway. Like, I would have much rather seen what Lin would do with Moana 2 and then offer somebody else fresh Mufasa. Could you imagine Mufasa with a score written by the person who did Hadestown? Like, that could be a killer score. That's a killer soundtrack if you've ever heard Hadestown. Snow White with new music from the composer of Six. I mean, just like there are musicals that are just banger, and they're attracting so much attention. And you could start attracting new composers. Disney already sort of does this. Like, they took, for their Broadway musicals, when they made a Freaky Friday musical, they asked the composers of Next to Normal to come in and do Freaky Friday. So Freaky Friday seems really oddly legit for a musical that hasn't had a Broadway run because of its composers, because the people who wrote the music for it are the same people who wrote the music to the absolutely excellent, and for some reason we haven't made a movie out of it, Next to Normal. It needs the right director. Although we're making a Kiss of the Spider-Woman musical this year, and that musical's been around for a while, so who knows, anything could happen. 10 years from now, we could have a Next to Normal musical with somebody who's just like, I want to make one. I'm going to do that one. But back to Moana 2. So yeah, we didn't ever need to mess around with this formula. I'm not gonna show on these girls because I didn't hate all of the music. I just don't think it's all memorable. Beyond is the only thing I'm gonna like remember after this movie. And I was thinking back to so many other musicals that are just like that, where there are other songs that are in the movie, but you only sort of remember one song. And like Aladdin and the King of Thieves, I remember out of thin air, but I don't remember anything else that's in that movie. So that's one song that popped for me, but I couldn't tell you what else was in that movie right now off the top of my head. You know, people like you, they don't come out of thin air. Yeah, I remember that song. So Beyond is going to kind of live in like a second tier Disney song, sort of with Out of Thin Air, where it's going to be like, yeah, I remember that. I could say the same thing about Frozen, though, for Frozen 2. I don't think that musical has quite the same reach. I don't think Into the Unknown was quite what the original musical produced. I think there are more people who remember "Do You Want to Build a Snowman" than the big, ballady "Into the Unknown." "Do you want to build a snowman?" I mean, it's catchier. So that's why I said sequels are hard. You have to kind of really approach it from a different angle while also embracing the past. It's a very it's an almost impossible threading of the needle, almost impossible threading of the needle to come up with anything. And it's also really hard for these people who have to do either these live action versions and they write new things in there, or they take the Broadway musical and then they're adding that new song that nobody ever cares about. Or you've got musicals that bounce around, and like Beauty and the Beast, for example, it's a great example. There was the Disney movie, took it to Broadway. They wrote new songs for the Broadway musical. Then they made a live action movie, and they didn't use the Broadway songs. Instead, they wrote new ones. So they have two songs that essentially say the same thing. They actually had to write Nevermore instead of just using If I Can't Love Her. They wrote Nevermore instead. I don't know why. You already had a song that said that. And same thing with the Little Mermaid musical. It's like Eric has some forgettable song in that was like, it was fine. I listened to it. I can't sing it to you. I have no idea what that is, but he sings her voice in the stage show. And I don't know. This thing where they keep trying to like write new songs, add new songs, and they're all chasing the classics. That's the thing here, is that these girls who wrote Moana 2, they really, really wanted to have How Far I'll Go. That's what they wanted. They wanted that. They have a new song for Maui. They really wanted it to be, You're Welcome. It's not. The one thing that I'll give them, though, is that their villain song, the villain here is really weak just as a villain, in general, just really poorly undeveloped. But it's not the songwriter's problem. That song is objectively far better than Shiny, which is my least favorite song ever written by Lin-Manuel Miranda. It's just atrocious, and it's the only reason I like ever pause with Moana, where I'm like, God, I'm gonna have to listen to this song again. I hate Shiny so much. They came in this time. It's a fun song. It's not Poor Unfortunate Souls. No one's gonna be singing it like years later. It's not the greatest villain song ever, but it certainly is something like that is quantifiably better than nothing that came before it. I can't say much about the villain, but again, when you take like 30 minutes out of the runtime of a movie, everybody's going to feel underdeveloped. That's the thing. Moana 2 also is a really quick watch because it's a really short movie. It suffers from that because it has a whole bunch of new characters that it's trying to introduce to you. Like there's a new villain. Maui just kind of shows up somewhere and he starts like talking, and then like there's a villain there. He's like, I wasn't with her. I don't know that girl. And you're like, what is even happening here? And seeing, what are we doing here? Like, where is he? What's going on? Like I don't know. It feels like I'm watching a TV episode of something. It's so disconnected and poorly written. You're like, did they test this? Who wrote the script for this movie? they, for some genius reason, they decided that Moana could not go this time alone. Even the last time she did go alone, this time she has to go with, I don't know, random people from the village. I don't remember any of their names. I don't remember what they do. Like one of them was like a farmer. They all like have like some weird specific skill set that's like the reason why they're going along with her. None of them are really developed characters though. They're all just sort of like traits. I'm strong. I'm smart. I'm a farmer. Like, who can't swim? Um, I don't know, man. She and I love that I there are plenty of little jokes where I laughed and they're she's trying to figure out, you know, who to take and whatever, and this one person says, well, the chicken survived last time, and it's like valid. I felt like watching the first Moana movie the whole time that the chicken was like constantly committing suicide and just they wouldn't let it. They were like, "No, we must save the chicken." Um, it just Hey was just constantly trying to die, just walking off of things and walking into things and just getting into trouble. I don't know how he survived the first movie, but they put Hey back on the ship. Hey Hey's back, you know. So yeah, but so are these like random forgettable characters. Aladdin, the stage musical, did the same thing where I don't even know how it's been running, how Aladdin ran as long as it did. It's baffling to me. It blows my mind, honestly, because for people who like the movie, you're not getting that in the stage musical. You're getting, they wrote out all of the animals, even though Disney was praised for doing all of the puppetry for Lion King. They decided, well, we don't want to do that here. So Aladdin, instead of having Abu, or instead of having a sentient carpet, or Raja or anything like that, he has these like three bumbling idiots that follow him around for the duration of the stage musical, like Babook, Mamoosh, and I don't know. And um they take place of the animals that have nothing to do or say. You know, it doesn't need them. Aladdin didn't need them before. Abu didn't contribute dialogue, man. He contributed in very specific ways. And then they went back, and then when they put Frozen on Broadway, they've got Sven out there as a puppet, and you're just like, so sometimes you're good with the animals, but you didn't think the animals in Aladdin were iconic enough, and you could replace them with random humans. Anyway, it's so choices. Everything comes down to choices in these movies as to like why a movie is not good. It usually is because somebody was like, "Well, we could do this instead," and it's like, you ever hear that? If it ain't broke, don't don't fix it. Well, there's a reason people like the first movie. So I would have stuck more towards that formula and figured out a way how to flip that, you know, figure out what sequels have worked, why did they work, and then go with that instead of just trying to like boldly fart on your own. Because this movie has nothing to say, it's not important. It's way too fast. It introduces characters you won't care about. It has a lot of forgettable songs in it. It does. I'm sorry, ladies. It does have forgettable songs. You wrote forgettable music. There's that song where everybody's like, I don't know, they're on the boats and arguing, and Moana starts stomping her foot, and then they like fix the boat together or something. I don't know. That song was just so forgettable. I I can't. Um, Maui's song is not "You're Welcome." It's okay. I didn't hate it. I wasn't sitting there. There was no song in this that made me put my head through a wall. Like every song was just like, well, I'm not going to remember that in 5 minutes. But at least there was nothing where I was like, oh, this is awful. Why is this here? Um, so and something to be said for that. But there's also like Beyond is the only thing I'm gonna remember, and I don't even know that I remember the voices. I just remember that Beyond, which they just do a lot. So over and over, beat that into your head by the time you're done with the movie. Um, feel free to use the runtime. Like the original Moana is like closer to 2 hours. This one's about, I don't even know if it's 90 minutes, to be honest. I think we got out before 90 minutes. And use it if you're going to bring new characters in. Honestly, I would have much rather seen, Moana has this little sister that's adorable. And I would have much rather seen just like erase all of the people who were on the boat with her and make it so that Moana and this little adorable sister accidentally sneaks on her boat somehow for the second journey, and then it's Moana and her sister, and I think that would be cool. And then they find out that like Moana's little sister also has the same sort of connection with the sea, and this little adorable, I don't know, Muppet 3-year-old, 4-year-old thing ends up somehow making a difference in the movie. It would have been way better than characters. I promise you, put Moana's entire crew somewhere in a Disney park and see if kids will go to them for autographs. I guarantee you no one will. They'll be standing out there for days until some like strange child comes up and is like, "Mom, you told me these were the Avengers. These are not the Avengers. This isn't the family from Encanto." Yeah, God, like the least interesting new cast additions. I don't know, voice performance is fine. They're just, none of them are developed well enough to care. They're all just like one note characters who are there for like one specific purpose. And that's not a story. That does not a story make. A story is made through connections and bonds and purpose. And in a few seconds, I could immediately tell the little girl needs to be on that boat. My favorite scene in the movie is Moana and her little sister, and she does this thing where she pushes out into the ocean. She walks out in the ocean separates for her like she's Moses. And her sister like trails her fingers along the sides of the ocean and can see the fish and everything. And Moana's telling her about, their connection to the ocean. And I'm like, wouldn't it be cool if that sister somehow got to be on that boat? And then we found out she also has Moana powers and has the same connection to the ocean. And that's one of the reasons why that was happening so well for them, is because they both can do that. If Moana's sister was in trouble, the water would also toss her back onto the boat. Things like that. So, yeah, I think that's exactly where I would have gone with this movie. You needed one new character, not a bunch, and a better plot. I can't even really tell you why they need to do this. She just kind of starts off the movie going, "I wonder if there are more of our people out there somewhere. I guess I'll go find them, because that's what I do. I'm a wayfinder now." Okay. It would have been a lot cooler for her to have to, for there to be a reason for her to have to leave. Not just like, I'm bored. I wonder if there are more of me out there. Let's go look. Yeah, sequels are hard, man. And I hope we don't do a Moana 3, unless you find somebody who can really sit down and convince you why they need to do a Moana 3. Like Disney, the person who gets to do Moana 3 is the person who like breaks in past your security and sits down in a room with you and it's like shaking, and they seem almost like they're a crazy person. They're like, "I've had Moana 3 in my system, in my bones. I know how to close out the trilogy. I've seen Moana 275 times and Moana 2 274. I can't watch it as many." That person will maybe know how to do Moana 3, but clearly you just assigned Moana 2 to people who were like, I guess we're writing Moana 2. Did you see the first one? I don't know. No, I didn't. I had no idea what they were doing. If Disney had asked me to pitch them Moana 2, I could have done a better pitch than this. This movie means nothing. It has nothing to say. It has some. It has a good score because it's the same people who wrote the original score. The songs are okay. They're being unfairly bashed online. I've heard much worse. They're just forgettable songs. I'm sorry, ladies, you wrote music that is not the same as the original, but that is something that plagues most sequels. Almost every single Disney sequel has inferior music to the original. Sorry, that's true. It does. When you think about it in the grand scheme, no matter how much you like something like Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, your song is not Circle of Life. It is not Hakuna Matata. I don't care what song you're going to throw at me. Even the song I pointed out from Lion King of Thieves. You know what it's not? It's not Whole New World. It's not Friend Like Me. So, it's really hard to come up with anything that feels like it's even, coming close to touching the sun. And this just doesn't happen here. Audio description is great, except for I would have chosen this narrator. The narrator feels a little bit more for adults. It's just a little bit flatter than I would have picked for a kid's movie. I just think these movies should be more engaging towards kids. Sometimes, and Disney does this sometimes, where sometimes they have a great narrator who really feels like they're engaging children. Inside Out 2 has one that feels like it engages children. This one does not. This one, it feels like it's not engaging the kids. It's just there. So she'd be fine for anything. I said the same thing in my Moana review, but like Conclave, The Brutalist, those films, just like flat drama narration. But the writing is still good. We're still following Maui's tattoos, which are nice. We still have nonverbal characters that we have to follow, like Hey Hey, and those weird pirate ant creatures are back. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called. Nor do I care enough to look it up. There are some cool action sequences that don't really make any sense, but I mean, we do have to navigate our way through them. So there are things, that we have to do. There's this really like unnecessarily heartfelt scene, by the way, which I think they earned that. I don't want to spoil it, but if you've seen Moana 2, I do think that they really went for it at the end. They were like, what if we go for the gut punch? And it's like, did you earn the gut punch? You can't just go for the gut punch and expect your audience to be like, no, it doesn't work. It's another thing that I brought up before with other things, like Disney's Frozen, for example. Has a similar moment. The first one has a similar moment. It's when Anna is running in to save Elsa and she freezes. And there's a moment there where you're like, did Disney just do that? And you're like, maybe. And maybe this whole town is then going to have this frozen statue of Anna and like the hero that saved, and maybe that's what the story is. Somebody wrote, immediately after the movie came out, do you want to build a snowman reprise? Which would have worked perfectly there, because what they needed was a moment. They needed a beat to actually hold that. Now here they're trying to hold the moment, and they play this thing out forever. And they're like, oh my God, it's taking. This is definitely happening. This is definitely how this movie ends. They're really trying to get you on that. And Frozen actually had a moment that could have worked, but like immediately they're like, nah, we didn't go. Nah, she's good. We're gonna melt that. I was like, what are you doing? Anyway, yeah, so they have an unearned moment at the end where they're trying to be like, oh my God. And no kid cried at the end of the movie. Every kid was like, what's happening? I don't understand. um, yeah, whatever. Anyway, Moana 2. It's not the first one. It's not terrible. It sort of reminds me. Pixar has done this a couple times. Pixar has some great sequels. Pixar has Toy Story 2, The Incredibles 2, Inside Out 2. They have some absolute banger sequels. And then they have Monsters University and Cars 3 and Finding Dory and some other ones where it's like there's a clear gap between the original and the sequel. There's a clear gap between the original and the sequel here. It's a little bit more pronounced than there is between Frozen and Frozen 2. I did not hate all of Moana. I don't hate all of the music, but it's not a winning movie, unfortunately. I'm gonna give Moana 2 B. Maybe B minus. I'll be nice and say B because I can still hear Beyond in my head. So I think the girls are being unfairly bashed, and I'll be a little bit nicer because I haven't been able to get Beyond out of my head since I saw Moana 2. So they want one song. I can't tell you what the rest of them are. I could not sing one of them back to you right now if I tried. But I can sing a little bit of Beyond. So there's something. And honestly, some of the songs we nominate the Oscars this year are dog shit. So Beyond is better than some of the songs we nominated this year at the Oscars. Hot take. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.